Lily really thought the worst was behind her when she gave birth to her beautiful twin babies. However, her supposed pregnancy sickness did not stop after that. It even got worse. 3 weeks after the birth, she decided to go back to the doctor to have another ultrasound. What the doctors discovered on that scan led one to profusely apologize. As the days passed, Lily found herself in even more pain than before. Her whole body ached. She had stabbing pain in her abdomen, and it was hard for her to walk. She couldn't even properly care for her babies anymore. That was when she decided to tell her husband, Pradeep. He was shocked his wife hadn't told him about her illness sooner. He suggested they go to the hospital right away, and it was a good thing they did because at the hospital, things only got worse. They kept Lily waiting for so long that she physically couldn't handle it anymore. Finally, after waiting for hours, the doctors conducted an examination, and what they found was shocking. They immediately scheduled an emergency operation, fearing for Lily's life. Lily had just given birth to beautiful twins, a boy named Ezekiel and a girl named Zara, after a complicated delivery. Despite the exhaustion and pain, Lily was elated to finally hold her precious little ones in her arms. She couldn't wait to take them home and start their new life together as a family. The first week with their 2 new additions to the family was rough. They don't call this the no-sleep week for no reason, but Lily didn't even mind. She cared for her children as if nothing else mattered in the world, and they quickly developed a routine that worked for them as a family. 3 weeks after their arrival, Lily suddenly began to feel sick. At first, she thought it was just the typical postpartum fatigue, but as the days went on, she knew something wasn't quite right. Her whole body ached, and she felt even worse than when she had birthed the twins. Lily was experiencing severe stomach pains and vomiting, and her husband Pradeep insisted they go to the hospital. But Lily was hesitant. She had 2 little babies they couldn't bring with them, and what if she had to stay at the hospital? How would she care for her newborn twins? So Lily said no, deciding she could go on and let her body heal on its own. She figured it was probably just postpartum symptoms, or so she hoped. But as the days passed, she began to feel only worse. It wasn't until she was unable to walk anymore that she thought it was time to go to the hospital. Pradeep called his parents, who came to look after the babies for a few hours. They expected to be back before dinner time, but Lily had pumped enough milk for the twins to be fed, just in case it would take a little longer. Little did they know, Lily wouldn't be home for a while. Lily and her husband drove to the hospital as soon as his parents arrived because Lily was feeling worse by the minute. Sweat dripped down her forehead as she painfully held her abdomen. She cried out in pain with every bump on the road, which was almost unbearable for her. When they arrived at the hospital, they immediately rushed to the emergency room. To their shock, it was very busy. The room was packed with people, from children to elderly folks, all with different injuries. Even with the severity of Lily's pain, they still had to wait. Lily quickly sat down in the only empty seat left, and Pradeep checked her in. The receptionist said the wait could be half an hour, up to 3 or even 4 hours, but Lily knew she could never make it that long. She was in so much pain, she could barely keep her mind clear. After barely holding on for half an hour, Lily couldn't take it anymore. Slowly, she started to slip in and out of consciousness, and before she knew it, she had passed out on the ground. Everything after that was a blur to her, but Pradeep remembered it like it was yesterday. He watched as his wife's eyes rolled to the back of her head, and she slowly plummeted to the ground. He immediately called for a doctor, and luckily they began to take her pain seriously. They put Lily on a stretcher and rolled her to one of the available rooms. Pradeep rushed after the doctors, afraid they would take his wife somewhere he wasn't allowed to be. But the doctors and nurses saw the panic on Pradeep's face and calmed him down. They assured him they would never take his wife away without informing him first. That reassured Pradeep a little, but he was still worried about her well-being. There was a lot of stress and chaos in those moments. 3 doctors rushed into the room, asking Pradeep all sorts of questions while they hooked his wife up to various machines. It was a scary sight, and Pradeep had to try hard to stay focused. Finally, Lily regained consciousness again. She slowly lifted her head and looked around. She was a bit out of it, and kept asking for Pradeep, even though he was right next to her. After a few minutes, she was back to normal, but still in a lot of pain. She had no idea what had happened, but was happy she was finally being helped. The doctors now asked Lily the same questions they asked Pradeep. All seemed to be going well until they discovered Lily had just given birth only 3 weeks ago. The doctors immediately told Lily they had to run some tests and took vials of her blood to send to the lab. Lily and Pradeep kept asking the doctors how long it would take and if they could give a little heads up about what they thought it could be. But none of the doctors gave a clear answer. After waiting for the test results for hours, Pradeep got a text from his father saying they couldn't stay any longer. Pradeep's parents had warned them they couldn't babysit the twins all day, as they had already made plans. But neither Lily nor Pradeep had thought the wait would be so long at the hospital, and Lily was far from being released. There was only one solution. Pradeep had to leave Lily behind. Lily told her husband it was all right and that he should go home to care for their children. Pradeep agreed, but promised his wife he would come back anytime she needed him. They kissed goodbye, and Lily watched her husband walk out of the room. She was left alone in the worst pain she had ever felt. Lily lay in her hospital bed, trying to distract herself from the pain. She watched a little TV and played a game on her phone, but there was still no news about her test results. A nurse came in telling her she would have to spend the night there as they wanted to monitor her closely. It was a bit of a shock for Lily to hear she wouldn't go home for the night. She had never spent a night away from her babies and feared Pradeep wouldn't know what to do. She called him immediately after hearing the news, but he assured her he and the twins would be just fine. Lily really wanted to believe her husband, but it just didn't feel right. She tried to sit up straight, but quickly realized there was no way she could go home on her own. She was stuck there and had to accept that she would sleep at the hospital with nothing she could do about it. During the night, Lily tried to get some sleep, but doctors kept coming in and out of her room to check on her and the machines she was hooked up to. The following day, Lily woke up feeling a bit better, but there were still many unanswered questions, and she missed her husband and children. Luckily, Pradeep was already on his way to the hospital. He couldn't find a babysitter, so he brought Zara and Ezekiel with him. At the hospital, Lily was ecstatic to see her family. She held her babies in her arms and finally felt better again. But that didn't last long, as the doctors arrived with bad news. 4 doctors gathered in Lily's hospital room with serious looks on their faces. Pradeep could feel the tension in the air. "Lily, we have some serious news," one doctor began. "We have found something on your ultrasound. We're so sorry, but we're not entirely sure what it is." Lily was very confused. "What do you mean, doctor?" she asked while frowning. Can you do something about it?" "I'm sorry," the doctor replied while looking at the ultrasound, "but we have to operate as soon as possible." "Operate?" Pradeep exclaimed. "Why? We don't have much time. Do you consent, Lily?" But Lily didn't know what to say. Everything was happening so fast, and she started to feel panicky as the doctors pushed her to answer faster. It was a heavy decision to make, as she had no idea why they were operating on her in the first place. But it didn't seem like the doctors would leave her room without a filled-in consent form. Eventually, Lily agreed. She knew the doctors would do the right thing, or at least that was what she hoped. But to be totally honest, Lily didn't know anything. The doctors kept her and her family in the dark about everything, and now that she had agreed to undergo surgery without even knowing why, she started to get nervous. As soon as Lily filled in the consent form, the doctors rushed out of her room and prepped an operating room. They returned and prepared Lily for the operation, telling Pradeep to wait in the waiting room. He had just enough time to kiss his wife goodbye before they wheeled her out of the room. Lily's nerves only worsened as she stared at the ceiling while being wheeled through the hospital's halls. They didn't tell her anything, only that it would all be okay. But Lily didn't believe that. She knew something bad was about to happen. Finally, they arrived at the operating room, and the last thing Lily remembered before being sedated was the bright lights above her. Hours later, she woke up in the same hospital bed she had slept in the night before, but this time she was groggier She felt tired, weak, and her body was still aching. As she slowly came to, she noticed Pradeep sitting in the corner of the room with Zara and Ezekiel in their stroller next to him. "Pradeep," she groaned. Pradeep jumped up at the sound of his name. "Lily, you're awake," he yelled, a big smile appearing on his face as he ran over to his wife. "What happened?" Lily asked, barely able to stay awake. "They've removed the baby, darling," Pradeep answered. Lily was taken aback. "Baby? What baby?" Pradeep frowned. "Didn't the doctors tell you? They accidentally left a third baby inside of you after your first delivery." Lily couldn't believe her ears. What her husband was saying couldn't be true. It had to be some kind of joke. "That's impossible," Lily said, still confused, but Pradeep assured her he wasn't lying. It wasn't until the doctor walked into Lily's room that her husband's words really began to sink in. "Lily, we're terribly sorry about what happened. It was never our intention, but we missed something on the first ultrasound," the doctor began. "How could you miss an entire baby?" Lily yelled, suddenly feeling wide awake. The doctor put up his hands to calm her down. "It was a complicated delivery, and we missed something on the scan," the doctor said apologetically. But this did nothing to calm Lily down. In fact, it only made her more upset. "Do you know what you've done to me?" she cried. "My husband had to raise our twins all alone because I was in too much pain to care for them." Pradeep watched his wife cry, feeling helpless. He understood Lily's anger, but knew it wouldn't solve anything. "It's okay, darling," he said while holding his wife. "We'll sue them and get lots of money for it." But Lily didn't care about the money. What she wanted was time with her babies, and it had already been taken from her. When they finally discharged Lily, she was still in disbelief. She felt like it had all been a bad dream. "Did it really happen?" she asked Pradeep repeatedly. The more Pradeep assured her it was real, the more angry and upset Lily got. The doctors had made a huge mistake, a mistake that would cost them dearly. They had to be sued for it, even if it wouldn't take back what they did to her. And that's exactly what they did.